Okay, we're going to try to miter these edges on the front of the side pieces. Going to miter them to 45 degrees. I went ahead and tilted my blade. You can see right here that the blade is tilted all the way to its maximum tilt, which is 45 degrees, and it's locked down. And have to be a little bit careful because your guard doesn't really go down. A lot of people make these cuts by pulling the guard back. I'm going to go ahead and leave it down and just take my time. And I have it adjusted a little shallow of what I need to cut just to see how far I need to go. And I'm going to bump it in and make a second cut after I see how the first cut goes, because it's much better to take off just a little bit than to take off too much and have to cut this whole piece again. Got this guide locked down in place. Okay, you can see there the type of cut we're making. And I want to go all the way to this corner here and make it to where it comes down at a 45-degree angle. I took just a little bit off. And that actually is a nice decorative feature for any time you want to do something like that and you have a table saw. You can do that for the edges of something if you have wood that's small enough that you can use without it being too awkward on a table saw. But anyway, we're going to push our guide right here a little bit closer and just get a little closer with it. If we have to do it 2 more times, that's fine. As long as we end up not taking away any length from this edge, that's what we want. If we do take any length off this edge, all we have to do is on the other piece take the same amount of length off. We just don't want to shorten this control panel by too much. I left a little bit of variance there for the controls that I need to put in it, but not much, maybe an inch or so. Loosen our guide, unlock it, bump it a little closer, lock it in place. Get our piece of wood flush up against it. And I'm going to eyeball it, make sure it doesn't look like it's too extreme. I believe we'll have to go a little closer than this, but I'm going to try this first. Getting very close, guys. Almost exactly what we need. One more adjustment, that should be it. Very, very close. There we go. I don't think it's going to get any closer than that. It's almost dead perfect. But this piece is going to stay flat back here. Got our front. Got a 45 cut. I'm going to do the same thing to the other piece. So I'm going to cut off right here because this has been about 10 minutes just doing this, and the other process will be exactly the same with the other one. And hopefully, since these are cut very close, I won't even hardly have to adjust it for the next one. Okay, there's one thing I do want to say here. Since we cut this piece laying down like that, and there we got our mitered corner, this is going to be like the left-hand side of our control box. This will be the right-hand side of our control box, so we got to flip the piece of wood over. Instead of being laying like this, we're going to have to take and flip the piece of wood over like that. That way, the miters will be cut that way off of that one. Well, let me turn around. Turn around, let's see. That cuts that way. Need to cut that away. And that's it. That's the way it needs to be set up on the table saw. So here we go. I'm going to cut the camera off for just a second and make this cut. Oh guys, that should have been the cut that I got on camera there, because I didn't even have to line it up. We had the exact width, same as the other, because they come off the same piece. That was the same width. You know, they had a little bit of variance in their height, maybe no more than 1/16 of an inch, but their width was exactly the same. So once I got the other piece perfect, this piece came out. Check that out. One cut. So you have to play around for the first cut if you want to get it perfect without scrapping out any wood. But that second one, if your dimensions are correct on the second piece of wood, that was it. One cut. That's all it took, and it looks perfect. You can see. There's the one piece of wood that came off of there. Just one piece. That was it. Of course, you got some width to make up for the width of the blade, but that came out of there, right there. Again, I apologize for the poor lighting. It's about 7 o'clock in the evening here, and it gets dark around 8 now in the woods here where I'm at. So I don't have any more cuts that I can make, but I want to do a couple more things. Okay guys, I got this large piece that I cut, let's see, when we cut the front that I haven't attached yet to the main cab, this was the piece remaining. We had I think it was a 4x4 sheet of plywood, a 4x4, and this was cut down to about 2 foot by 4 foot. It's a little less than 2 foot from the left to the right here, so we can't use it to bridge the gap between the 2 foot for the bottom, the front, or anything. And got some squirrel activity going on in the trees, kind of making me curious there. But anyway, we're going to take and use this to rip a piece long ways out of there for the front of the control panel. We need a piece about 30 inches long, and it has to be 4 3/4 inch tall, and that'll do the front part. And we have to miter each, the left and the right side, to match the pieces there that we've already cut. But I got to take this down to over to the old work table over there in the yard, because it's a little too big to cut up here, and I don't want to set it on my table saw. It's going to be wobbling all about. I'm going to take my skill saw down there, and I'm just going to cut it really close to 30 inches. I'll probably go something like 32 inches by about 6 inches, and then I'll make the finishing cuts, the nice cuts here on the table saw. But I'm going to go down there real quick, and I'm not sure if I'll film it. I might just come back and you'll see me with a rough piece of wood cut. Just thought y'all might like to see. I just saved a flying squirrel from my cat. We got all kind of wildlife out here. We have flying squirrels. They get into the attic every year. We try to get rid of them, but this is a little baby. It ain't cold enough for him to be up in the attic yet, but he was out somewhere near a tree, and the cat got him. I'm gonna go let him go. Say bye. Say bye. Okay guys, as you can see, I used the 2 foot by 4 foot scrap sheet and cut me a piece about 31 inches by about 5.5 inches, and the piece we're going to eventually have to end up with is about 30 inches by about 4 3/4. And as you can see, the little hunter is still up in the woods looking for another squirrel. She got mad I took her other squirrel from her. That cat is about 12 years old, so she doesn't have much life left. I guess I should let her keep her prey. But anyway, we're going to get back to making the final cuts on the piece that we just got out of the scrap. Okay, I know it doesn't help much. I've got one of my security lights on up here. You can't see up out of frame up that way, but one of my security lights is on. I've got a bulb burn out. I'd like to have both of them on, but it's giving me a little bit of light to finish this project. But anyway, this is a scrap piece, and we need to take about an additional inch off, and maybe about a 3/4 of an inch off, I think, going down this way. And pretty nice looking piece. I cut it out of that scrap. That scrap did have a little bow to it, and I found the flattest part. That looks pretty good. If there's any bow to it, I think in a piece this small it's going to be unrecognizable. I hope it will be anyway. But that MAME is probably the best thing to use if you want perfectly straight pieces, but I just like plywood. It's real wood, and I don't know. I mean, they say that there's stuff that's in formaldehyde and stuff like that in the MDF and all, and you have to wear respirators when you cut it. Now, it's probably a good idea with some of this stuff to wear a respirator too, but I just put on some safety glasses, and you know, I don't try to breathe in a whole lot. But around the MDF stuff, I've heard it does have some chemical stuff in there that could possibly harm you if you inhaled it a lot, or if you're in an enclosed area like a garage. But we're just going to do this with plywood, since the original cabinet was made in plywood, and hopefully I won't have to use anything but the sheets that I've already bought. So I'm going to measure this out, and I'll get to cutting in a second. I'll cut back in here and show you a couple of the cuts. Okay, we got our board marked at 30 inches. This is the factory edge and the factory corner here. There's a little bit of chipping there, but that's going to be cut away when I cut 45 degrees anyway. So we're going to use this factory corner and edge, keep this edge. We're going to cut away here. This is our rough edge. So we're going to cut this part away, and we're going to cut this away when we do the 30-inch length, because this is my rough cut that I ran the circular saw across there real fast. But we'll clean that up in a second. Right now we got to make this cut. First thing we got to do is get our blade back up to 90 degrees. And I also have to get me some power. I disconnected my power. I'm going to check this blade real quick, make sure it still looks perpendicular. Looks pretty good. Hope I don't get West Nile virus and getting bit by mosquitoes. Haha. I'm going to move this guide. I'm getting kind of close to the railing over here on this side. Then again, I don't know. Let's see. I think we'll just use this guy. Just kind of eyeball it. It looks pretty close, but I think I'm going to have to come back and make a second pass. Make sure I'm all locked in. Okay, safety glasses. almost became a missile. Well, look at there, guys. I pretty much got it first try. I don't know if you can see the line, but I pretty much got it first try. Let's measure it, make sure. What do you think? You guys can't hardly see in this dark. I'm going to have to go in a second. About 30 inches. We're going to go ahead and try to make our bevel cuts this before I go in the house. Looks pretty dang good. I like that. Okay, we're going to decide which one we want to be our pretty side, and we're going to have to make one more pass and cut this. Let's see. That's not going to make it. I'm going to have to pull my table saw backwards, I believe, to get this in one pass. So, let me unplug the power. Pull my table saw back a little ways. A little wobbly on my old porch here. I think that's good enough. We got a little wobble to it, but I can make do with that. Go ahead and make this mark for the 30 inch length we've already cut. I got to make the mark for the 4 3/4. And before I make sure it's 4 3/4, I'm just gonna, before I do that, I'm gonna measure this and see how close we are. It's almost dead 4 3/4. I'd say 4 5/8. That's what I'd say, 4 5/8. Check this one. 4 5/8. So we'll adjust to what the actual cuts are, 4 5/8. Try to see which ones are factory edge. It's harder for me to tell now, so I cut that bad piece off. Okay guys, just showing you the 2 side panels for the control panel. And the front piece that I cut, my camera died on me yesterday when I was cutting the front piece. But it turned out pretty good. And I did get the cuts mitered on each end. If you look real close, you can see the way that angle comes down. It doesn't meet perfectly, but that's okay because the top of the control panel is going to be hinged and it's going to come down just basically across this whole thing and just hang over the edge, and that's really perfect enough. Got a pretty good corner there. Of course, it's not attached right now, but it'll be glued, and probably use finish nails and possibly on the inside some blocking. I don't think I want to use screws for this. I think it'll be a little too much to hide, but turned out looking really good on both sides. And I held it up temporarily to the main cab there and just kind of measured, and it looks like it's going to work out just right. And we're about to go outside and we're going to cut the bottom piece. It'll be the piece that goes right here for the bottom of the box, and then we'll probably cut either a back piece or at least a partial back piece, kind of like a support. We still need some room for wires to go down. But that's what we're going to go outside now and use the table saw for. We're going to cut the bottom piece. Okay guys, we're going to continue on today. I got to cut the bottom piece for the control panel, and I'm just going to cut it long off of this rough piece here and take it up to the table saw and get the dimensions more accurate. So we're cutting it long, about 30 inches by 12 inches. I think it only needs to be about maybe 11 1/4 by about 29 on the inside, because it's going to sit on the inside of the side panels and all fastened inside there. So we're just going to go ahead and snap out the dimensions just kind of roughly here, cut it out, and finalize it on the table saw. And we're going to go from the corner that has the factory edges. That way we know that one side is perfectly square. I've already checked it with the framing square. And we'll just go ahead and make our rough cuts on the other edges, and we'll true those up on the table saw. But it helps to have a good square corner, a good flat edge, so that your guides on the table saw will help guide the rest of your cuts perfectly. Well, there's our rough piece right now. I had a little bit of splintering on that last corner right there where we had to kind of cut across each other. Sometimes if you don't go about 2 or 3 inches further, then the circular blade won't go all the way through the wood. But it splintered just a little bit on that corner, but like I say, I left about an extra inch for both dimensions, and it should be perfectly fine. Okay, we're going to measure for our length. It's 28 5/8. Put some marks on here so we can cut that on the table saw. And this is the factory corner here. We know it's perfectly square. We're going to measure from here. We're not going to cut this since we know it's a good cut already. We're going to go ahead and measure up to here, 28 5/8. Okay, you got our mark made right across there. Don't know if you can see it. We're going to cut about 1.25 inches off of here. Okay, that's the Okay guys, don't know if you can see, we got real close to our line. It actually left just a hair. Don't know if it'll focus there. Really pretty close. Left maybe a 64th of an inch past the line. I'm just going to see how the fit is on the pieces inside, and I'll be right back, and I'll cut us the width right there. Okay guys, we got the piece temporarily inserted to show you how it looks with the other pieces. Really looks pretty darn good. I maybe cut it a 64th of an inch too long, but it actually worked out good in this case. Now these are just dry fitted together. There's nothing holding them. You can see the fit's really good. All we have to do is cut off that little extra there, about 3/4 of an inch or so, and that'll be it for the bottom. Okay guys, again, it's almost dark out here. It's about 7:30 at night, and with all this foliage it gets as dark as 8:30 at some places around here. So I've already got the board marked. Took off about 3/4 of an inch. Measured in there about 3/4 of an inch, just slightly less. I did just slightly less than 3/4, and that way I can come back and hit it just a little bit with a sander or with the table saw in case it's not quite right. But I'd rather do a little less, like I said, than a little too much, or you have to cut the whole piece over. I went ahead and run a line down through here with my framing square, and I just stopped a little short. I just went as long as the framing square, because once you start cutting with a table saw, if you get off that line, it's not going to matter. You're just going to have to finish your cut. So anyway, we're going to go ahead and try to set this up. This is our factory edge that we used, and this is our other factory edge. This is our cut edge that we just made, And this is going to be the new cut for the back of the bottom piece. Where do you go? Yeah. And I need to move my entire saw back. I forgot to allow for the length of it. It's going to hit my railing, so I'm going to cut it off and just slide it back. We're going to unplug it first. Okay, now we're going to continue on. It's usually not a good idea to start out with a piece of stock in it, but I don't really have another choice. And these kind of pieces are really good to save for blocking inside the control panel. You could use that in the corners, put it in the corners and either staple it or nail and glue it in place, and that'll help give you some rigidity to your corners on the inside. You just have to cut it whatever the height of your control panel is from the bottom to the top. I don't know if you guys can see, stayed dead on the line right up here. It looked really good. I mean, it just barely erased the pencil mark, and as we got further down here, you can see the pencil mark just a little bit, and that's just because our cuts before that probably weren't perfectly square. And as we got down here, it looks like the pencil line can just barely be seen again. So everything looks good. Nothing could be any further than about a 64th of an inch off, looks like. And we're going to go in and check it out right now. Okay guys, there's the piece cut to the exact measurements. Looks like we've got a really good fit. It's our last cut, and you see it looks like it lines up perfectly. And again, this is a dry fit. Nothing's actually put together. This is just standing here. Really good fit all the way around. Looks pretty good.